Yeah, yeah.
I see.
That's what I that's what I like about this platform. If you can't hear, at least you can see.
Yes.
Let's put everybody through a test. They need to tell us the state of their mobile phones before they even start talking. Where are
Yeah.
they? Where are their mobile phones as they speak? What state are
Yes.
they in?
Yeah.
Let us be practical.
Yeah, we must do it practical.
I must tell you, I've been thinking a lot about this topic. Rio. I need to make sure that it doesn't do exactly what we say are the don'ts as we carry on. But
Yeah.
but I think there is also a practical reality, and that is the same phones that we have been teaching ourselves not to engage with them while we're having shows. They are now the platforms that we stream the shows on.
Yes.
Now, we are going to have a very interesting conversation and negotiation as to where is this taking us to in terms of the now and the future, and the role that phones play in disseminating information like the way we do. So that's
Indeed.
my second question. That's why I didn't send any news today. This is a practical one.
It's a practical one. And this one, yeah, it's very interesting because more often than not, when I am when I am on the program, you find that there are calls that come in.
That's the
That's
second
the
question,
second question.
and also the SMSs and notifications.
Yes.
Here,
How to
here
manage that?
now.
Yeah. How does one manage that?
Yeah. The question is when that what happens has just happened and you don't want it to appear like it's an interference, how do you go about doing that?
A good question. A very good question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So
How do it?
I think something has to give in. We shouldn't see it as a hindrance. We should actually look at it as an enabler. But how do we build that into our shows?
Indeed, it is an enabler. It wants
Yeah,
you to multi skill
yeah,
while
yeah.
on the show, but you need to interact with the audience.
I mean, if I want to communicate with you now by way of text to you, I don't have to tell the listeners that I'm texting that Mutla. I can text you, and you just need to find a way to also engage with me on it, right?
Yes,
And that should not become a problem of the listeners. That should be an issue between me and you.
indeed.
And when you got cut, that should not be the matter of the listeners. That should be me and you, because I can see that you are cut off, and I know you.
Remember when you were doing book review
Yes.
out of nowhere? Good look at Braso Minkatili
Uh-huh.
in
Uh-huh.
the show.
You know, so that is exactly the point. How do you engage with these happenings as a result of you being constantly connected to your mobile? It should not distract you. It should not become a topic, but it should just be immerse itself into the conversation. Welcome, Rabula. Good to see you.
Good afternoon, Sam, and good afternoon, Dr. Ramutha. Or it's evening, my apology, guys.
Good evening. Good evening. Yeah, yeah. Whenever I see you, I see a representative of Vujanala. Yeah. Tell me, Ndate Rabula, why are all the districts in Northwest named after doctors?
No, maybe some of them think the person should go and find out why. Because I know you've got
Because it starts with Muliro Mulema, Dr. Sibadi, Dr. Kaunta. It's all doctors. There are about 5 of them. It's all doctors.
except Bujanala. See, maybe here we don't have doctors.
Vujanala is not a district.
It's a district, Bujana.
Is it a district? Oh, yeah, with exception of Vujanala, yes, you're right. But everything one is doctors. There are 3 doctors or 4. Dr. Kenneth
There are
Kaunta, Dr. Nagamudi Mulema, Dr.
and then
Sibadi, and
Ruth,
Dr.
Ruth Mompati, yes, yeah.
Yes.
Mm, mm. Those guys were more like heroes in Northwest.
Mm.
Why they chose Kenneth Kaunda, it's only the guys at the political level can be able to explain it, especially
Yeah.
in a Potchefstroom Klerksdorp area, because that's where the Kenneth Kaunda is.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, that is in the Potchefstroom area.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then Ngagamudi Rumolema is the Mafiking area, and Roof Mompati is the your Taung Freiberg area.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then Vujanala is closer to us here.
Yes, Bujanala is the Rustenburg area, yes.
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
I'm working on a project that is exposing me to the districts of South Africa. And I must tell you, it's quite
Yes.
fascinating actually. And
It's very interesting.
I was shocked actually to find out that Mpumalanga has only 3 districts.
Yes. It's one of the models which Nkosazana was trying to pursue so as to eliminate provinces and have districts. So you've got national government, you've got districts, which
And then you have
district.
metros.
No, from the districts, he was also eliminating the towns to have a districts where it's going to be a sort of a service delivery vehicle on the ground.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Very interesting. I will indulge you on this because it's I really I got quite appreciative of the hard work that the demarcation committees of those years did, and now we actually have a template of when you talk of South Africa from that perspective. You actually could
Yes,
even be very strategic in terms of which region you are interested in. And then, of
yes,
course, within each district, then you have the local municipalities,
yes.
right?
And,
And
and then if the politician can understand the role of the district, it makes life much more easier. That's why the target of Gauteng was to eliminate the local municipalities and operate on the metros only. The only difference came in the Val area and the West End. And West End, the ANC guys in Krugersdorp regretted the opportunity they have to have a metro in West End.
Mohale City is actually quite huge enough to
Yeah.
actually do
Yes.
that dimension.
The, the,
Very
the, the target in the target in I think two previous local government was to have Mohale City Metro,
yeah,
which incorporated your Randfontein up to Carltonville area. And the
yeah,
guys in Krugersdorp, in Mohale City, refused to be a metro. That's
yeah,
when Western area and Randfontein get merged. They're supposed to have one merge, call it Mohale City Metro.
yes, yeah. And then
Because in so
Sidibeng also is qualifies to be a metro.
yes, and Midval refuse.
Wow, interesting.
Because
Okay, cool.
because
Let's
Midval
pack it. Let's pack it. I'm going to call you in for a very interesting at the appropriate moment to talk about that because it's quite fascinating. Anyway,
Very
I can see
interesting,
you
yes.
have I can see you have got insights in it, and of course for you during your era at the banks, these were the markets, right?
That was my client base.
Mm. Okay, welcome, brother Divesh.
Evening, Sam. Evening, Rapula.
Good
Evening, France.
good evening, Divesh.
Yeah, let's move on, colleagues. Welcome to another series, another episode of our series. I've greeted you in the chat box there and reminded you that is another episode of our Train the Trainer series on the digital online streaming mastery. And this is unit number 19, conduct 14, mobile phone etiquette during live streaming shows. And let me say that I'm delighted that we are knocking at unit number 20, which will then be taking us halfway to 40. Wow. Divesh, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's definitely been a journey, Sam. And yeah, I'm happy as well to get to the halfway mark. And also looking forward to the downhill. Reached halfway, so should be easier sailing from this point. But
I
nonetheless,
think so.
still interesting content, Sam.
Yeah, I think so too. I really feel like in any marathon, once you are halfway, you cannot not enjoy it. So it's beautiful, but a lot of stuff that we're working on in the background. That's why I engaged Rapula on the districts and the local municipalities in terms of our organization and and the new platform where the digital online streaming mastery is going to become a forum and is going to become an area of interest. So sometimes you plan this way, things come this way. So that's why I'm very animated in a positive way because when I look at the few of us who have been doing this, I know that, and then of course there will also be a blog where we can download what we know. So let me hold it there before I reveal a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Tadera Mutla, greetings to you and greet the listeners and the colleagues. Makuluf. Again, the Bula, while Makuluf is still trying to get connected.
Good evening, listeners. My name is Rapula Mudibani. I'm based in Bojanla district, and I think tonight we're going to have very interesting conversation in terms of etiquette during live streaming. And then what lessons have we learned in the past and what lessons we're going to learn today? Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, let me start by asking you, colleagues, just tell us the state of your phone, mobile phone, as we speak now. What state have you kept it in? Where is it located? And just for out of interest.
Interesting, Sam. Let me start with myself. Do you know, I don't know what's wrong with my, what do you call this, my laptop? Because all my conversation I'm having with comments I'm using my phone. Even right
Ah,
now, I'm using the phone. I'm using the phone, yes.
so your phone
If
is
I,
a equipment on which you are streaming as we speak.
Mm. Exactly. So when I'm trying to use laptop, I can't go to the studio. I can only go to the public.
You have answered my second question, but I will hold it
Yeah.
back before I ask you.
Mm.
Dinesh,
Yeah.
share with us where your phone is, the state in which it is in.
Well, the state it's in is I usually keep my devices, and the one that I'm currently using, I've been using for the last 6 years, still faithful, doesn't have one scratch on it. And
Yeah.
indeed, like Rapula, we're streaming and using the device at the moment, listening, communicating on the show, multitasking at times. And
Mm.
yes, indeed, we tend to become too reliant at times on our devices, Sam.
Yeah. I don't know whether that the Ramutla is able to chip in. If you can, let's hear you. Otherwise, let me share with you. My phone is next to me, is on the table, and is on vibrate, and obviously they have closed, have flipped it over, so I can't see all the notifications that are popping up, and I do hope that I do not get a phone call, but I feel helpless as it is, because if I want to stop calls from coming in, I'm going to have to put it on flight mode. But the problem is that if one of you wants to communicate with me because of maybe difficulties on the connectivity side, you will not come through. And that is a dilemma I find myself in, but I'm so far so good. I've never been disappointed. It seldom rang during the shows. So, but if it was to ring, it will vibrate. You might not hear it, but it will interfere with my focus. So therefore we are in a fix. If we look at it, a couple of years ago, when we were dealing with this conduct, we were quite saying water, drinks, or food and phone is a no in a studio. Within 2 years since then, looking at this development of the role around the phones and the role they play, they're taking over everything. And therefore, if you say to people they must switch off their phones, you are as good as say get disconnected from the platform. So it does look like we have to adjust ourselves in terms of thinking of the etiquette, mobile phone etiquette during the live stream, because you might just be forced to stream from your phone itself. So that develops a different kind of etiquette, and that's what I want us to perhaps explore and talk a bit about.
Are you still there, Sam?
Yeah, I'm allowing silence to take over so that you can reflect a bit on the points we've just raised about the dilemma we find ourselves in. That many of the mobile phone etiquettes are falling off because the mobile phone is central to our streaming business. If you go to the stadia, people cannot watch football anymore or any sports anymore without them being engaged through their phones and sharing the experience with their family members at home. And in terms of our studio work, I can stream the whole show from the phone. So are these do's and don'ts still applicable, or can we enrich them and focus on what do you do with it while in the process of using it? Things keep, the push notifications, the SMSs, the I don't know what you call it, all sorts of things that happen integrally to you during the show.
Do you know, Sam, you raised something very interesting. And if you allow me, can I refer to the workshop or the launch of last week, Thursday, of work integrated learning, where
Yeah,
a question was raised. A question was raised in terms of saying, I'm at 2000. I used the word I'm at 2000, and the baby
yeah,
boomers, they're always in conflict,
yeah,
because they are my 2000, they're always on the screen, and whether they are listening to you or not, but they're always on the screen. And the
mm,
baby boomers believe that is an unethical behavior.
mm.
Hence, they get short tempered and get agitated with that behavior.
Yes.
And one of the program for work integrated learning is to retrain the students who are about ready for the work market to be aware of that as a disadvantage to them.
Yes.
So what you're raising now and what was happening on Thursday is more like a conflicting of saying, how now do we retrain AMA 2000 or retrained baby boomers that there's a new way of working? So you always have a phone next to you. It's not going to say it's going to change anything else.
Yeah.
Mm.
No longer a distraction is part of our being as people in the office.
Yes.
If I can come in there, Sam.
Yes, Divesh.
Well, as much as I can agree with Rapula, I also still say whatever technology that's being embedded into society, into our environments, whether it's social or whether it's work related, we still need to have rules. We still need to have a level of etiquette as to how we engage with those tools. I mean, likewise, when we speak of having respect for a guest in an online radio streaming scenario, your devices will also need to be handled with that kind of a level of respect as well. Yes, the generations have more, affiliations with technology. But even with myself, I'm very linked with technology. But it's about balance and it's about finding synergy in terms of the tool and using it appropriately in the right way, as well as with regards to those that's around you.
Mm. Indeed, you just jumped into the actual content of our show now. Thank you for that. So let's talk now. We are accepting that these devices are integral to conducting a show, and in actual fact, it might be a huge disadvantage, right, by switching them off, especially in situation of virtual studio, because you might just need to communicate silently without distracting the listener. So now let's talk with that. The use of a mobile phone in supporting you in the show to communicate with all the role players, most of whom will then be people who are supporting you in the background, or the people that are with you in the studio but virtually, and making them aware of what you want them to be doing or to be focusing on. So what is the right way of handling that particular functionality of a phone, especially if the phone is not a platform on which you are streaming? What will be the right way to handle that, and what must we be cautious of in doing that? And how do you avoid losing the trail of thought, the trail of thought as you're doing that? Maybe we should sit on that a little bit, because I think that could be actually a competency on its own, right?
Well, Sam, if I touch as well on what we were dealing with the last couple of shows about being self aware, being fully present, a
Mm,
cell phone can definitely be very distracting. And as you've said, in this scenario, the cell phone isn't the device on which you are doing the streaming, or the studio and the channel that you are broadcasting
mm,
on is not on the cell phone device. So it should be put aside. You
mm,
might be distracted again because you are waiting for an urgent message, you're waiting for an
mm,
urgent call. So then you would then lose the focus, the being fully aware and fully present at that point in time. And you really need to focus your mind, your body, your spirit away from those types of distractions. So, like
Yeah.
you were saying earlier, one of the aspects you could do is definitely keep the phone on silent. It must not be vibrating as well, because those things could distract you, could distract your guest, and definitely it could relay back onto the channel and then cause disturbances for the show as well, Sam.
Mm. Mm. So the other scenario could be that of, and I think as we grow as a platform, you could almost go to the traditional practice of having a producer sitting next to you and attending to any messages that comes into that mobile phone, especially if that mobile phone number has been announced as a means of getting input, maybe through WhatsApp also. Or if you have agreed, like I normally do with Michael, to say, please do quality check for me at the distance. Tune in like you are a listener and let me know how we are coming across. And if you pick up something, send me a WhatsApp. Now, and I think it's just a question of multitasking, but it could be something that could be very destructive if the messages around the quality of the show come through into you who is hosting the show, and you now need to be trying to fix what you have to fix. So I think the etiquette, and I think the distinguishing factor here is that phone itself an equipment you are streaming through, and in that case, God forbid, there shouldn't be any phone call coming through, but it does come through. I still remember a number of times some of us will be in a call, and then you can tell that a message is coming through or a call is coming through, and in many cases it cuts you off. And then if you have not been inducted very well, you come back and say, "Sorry, I was distracted." So you've already lost it because you've already confirmed that you are vulnerable. So there is an element of planning there, an element of organizing to guard against that, because we are just lucky that maybe our show is not that hot that you could have many people wanting to communicate something. But if it was like that, you may be reaching a stage where you realize that now you need a producer next to you, because anytime anybody out there may want to comment and send messages. Rabul?
Yeah, yes, you are right, Sam. I think we need to adjust as people. Specifically of saying phone could be enabler and phone could be disabler. So aware of that, it makes life much more easier to be able to say when to look at it and when not to look at it. If you're on a platform, like in a platform right now, and I'm speaking, I should not be looking at the phone because it may disrupt me. Even if it's on silent or on vibration, I should continue finishing my thoughts process so that I've continued on it. And thereafter, once I've completed my conversation, is then I can go to the phone. But at this stage when I'm speaking, no phone. So being aware of that makes life much more easier.
Great. Let's complicate matters more now. You now have a calling in show, and you want to be as practical as possible or as real as possible. You want the listeners to hear the calls coming through and you picking them up, either being put through by a production person or straight picking them up, which is quite very risky. But I know there are shows like those who will pick up the calls without knowing exactly what the angle from which a person is going to come in. And therefore now the old traditional etiquette of handling phone comes in, because you are handling it live like as if you are operating a switch. And you say, "Hello, welcome. This is Sam Zimmer, and this is our digital online mastery show. How can we help you? What is your input?" Now, it's different to say, "Hello," keep quiet, right? So the etiquette is what then will say. So I'm saying the old etiquette of how you pick up the first call and engage with a person is now required, wherein if the show is a phoning in show and you are picking up the calls live, not via production line. Because if it goes via production line, they'll prep you and tell you who's on the line and what they're going to talk about. But you still have to pick them up and make them feel welcome. So there's an element of etiquette there that has to do with the professionalism of handling, picking up conversations and engaging in a talk. So I'm basically saying the old etiquette can be integrated in the modern way when you're doing a live show where people are calling in and you pick them up, especially if they come straight into studio, because there are shows like this and they're beautiful because people who are very experienced, like this gentleman that holds midnight 702 show, Masango. It's Masango, ne? I don't think he works with somebody next to him at night. It looks like he picks up the calls himself.
Yeah, most of the night calls are direct from the studio. It's not my phone which is making noise. Most of my calls are a night shift are direct to the studio. You as a receiver, you have to have a capacity to manage those calls because some of them could be out of the touch. Some of them could be phoning because the person is frustrated. Many things can happen at night.
Yeah. They were
So it should
talking
be
about. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, because perception that some people might be lucky. He's on the verge of killing himself. So let me call the studio, and then the studio can
Yeah.
divert that moment of the person kill himself to a live person, and then the following day the person will thank the show.
Yeah. Thank you, Rapula, for being practical and bring that, because those kind of shows, they have certain etiquettes that you have to follow. Actually, I was looking for something to respond to that challenge of those kind of calls. And as always, I just went on to internet. I think you can find it on Google as well. They're talking about the 5 P's of telephone etiquette, not necessarily to do with the show, but I think they apply to the show. And in a situation like that, the 5 P's are even more actually. So they said, be prepared, be present fully, be polite, be patient, be personable, be professional, and be proactive. Let's talk about those. And you want people to become your fans of your show. And I think that Dr. Masango is incredible. I like him. Whenever I'm driving at night and he's on show, I really, really enjoy the manner in which he engages with them. Fully passionate, never found caught unaware, very fully present. So, Divesh, do you think those PPPs, they're about what, 3, 6, 3, 6, 7? There are about 7 of them. Do you think that could be something that we can borrow to build around this current scenario where now phone is integral to our shows, and say, don't be surprised, but you have the etiquette that you have learned when you were growing up. You can still use them, but it's just that now you are using them in the context of holding a live show, but you're still answering a phone live on a show. You're still answering the phone live on a show. I'm thinking of being fully present. That's we have addressed so far. Being prepared is very similar to planning, right?
Well, Sam, if we're saying the scenario is that the technology is integrated into the platform and part of the show, you receiving a call from a listener that it requires different etiquette. The etiquette I
Mm.
was referring to earlier is to say something that's not part of the show, where
Yeah,
you will be getting a call or a message that's disturbing the show. But if
yeah,
the device is integrated into your platform, it's part of what you're delivering, that
mm,
requires a different etiquette.
yes,
Again, etiquette for me that comes to mind would say how you answer the phone, how you speak to the listener, and that conversation that you have with the listener must be in alignment with all the other etiquette that you have for the channel, for the show itself, the branding of the station. All those must come into consideration when we now engaging with a different device, a different technology, which again is forming part of the show, Sam. So
yeah,
yes, indeed,
yeah,
we will definitely have to integrate these things into it. But when I think of having etiquette uh, with things like technology that's part of the show, cell phones, for example, um, we would definitely have to look at what the situation is. If the phone is part of the delivery of our show, then
yeah.
there is a specific type of rules for that, and if it's not part of the show, then there's different rules again for that.
Beautiful, beautiful. I thank you for clarifying that. I think that's actually beautiful, and in fact, that answers the dilemma that I highlighted at the beginning. That the phone has migrated into becoming integral to shows, and therefore the etiquette it depends on what role the phone is playing. If it's just next to you and you can't be expecting to be attending to calls that come onto your phone while you are busy hosting a show, and then you try to accommodate that, that will be irresponsible actually to even allow that to happen. In fact, the phone should be away from. But however, if now a phone is a means through which you are going to be streaming, that means the phone itself is a platform, and therefore what comes into that platform is part of the show. And when you pick up somebody who calls into a studio to make input, the first point of picking up that phone, that politeness needs to come through, that you must be fully present and willing to listen and be prepared for anything possible, as Rapula said, because you might think that this person is going to call and respond to what you are discussing, only to find that he's actually calling to say, as Rapula said, I'm in trouble here, my life is at risk, I decided to call the radio to get help. And I've had the time, I've had to listen to such calls with Opri Masango where he had to say, okay, hold on, let me see if I can get my production team to help you. And then he plays music, and then he sort of like deal with it. And then he comes back and say, you can chill, listeners, it is under control. That is being prepared. And I think and that is the dilemma, that is a challenge of a live show, real live show, because you have to be ready for anything. And that patience that is also listed here as one of the qualities you must have: be personable, professional, and proactive.
Do you know, Sam just mentioned there, the other thing which just came to my mind on the same scenario is, sometimes live shows can overrun the time allocated through to you because you're enjoying the topic as also the host of the show itself. So,
Yes,
those are the dilemmas because you need to be self-aware of your
yes,
environment. So I need to end the show in the next 5 minutes. I need to make sure I
yeah.
limit my conversation because if I go beyond that, there might be something which is very important to the listeners or to the radio itself. Those are the things which you need to manage well upfront. Hence, be prepared and be aware, making life much more easier.
Mm, mm, indeed, indeed. Because it's meant to be contributing to the show, but it could become destructive if you are not self-disciplined. You overindulge, and then you actually forget that it is not really about the conversation you have in the phone. It's about informing the listeners and addressing the topic that you are addressing with the listeners. And I think one of the dilemmas again is if you have a listener that is never stopping to talk, doesn't stop talking, and you will want to move on because there are other people who are waiting to come through. Now you don't just cut the person off, but what if they just don't let go? Ultimately, you're going to forced to do something, and I have seen sometimes people play music on top of a voice of a guest, because when you are interrupting through music, it's not as bad as when you are interrupting to say, listen, finish your thought now, other people need to come in. You just play music and you fade it. Is it fading it in, or it's like you slowly you start playing it slowly and then you increase the volume? You are basically saying, we are done with you, but I don't want to disrupt you. We can still see you slowly fading away, and that is also a technique, and is politeness that they're talking about. Because if you're not experienced, you become abrupt, and sometimes you hear people phoning and say, look, I don't like the way you're cutting me while I'm still talking. This is our platform, especially those regulars.
Sorry. And sometimes I say some of the attributes towards the live shows is because it's not scripted, it's not restrictive. So because of the unrestricted portion of it, you need to be aware
Mm,
that
mm,
your content won't be scripted. So be aware of being spontaneous and be able to reframe or redirect the conversation to what the topic is all about or what the outcome is all about.
mm, mm. And yeah, absolutely. And yes, Divesh?
Yeah, I just wanted to also say that as much as it's not something you can script, you have to script the do's and don'ts still. Whatever situation arises, you still have your rules that you should follow as a professional host, as a
Mm,
guest on the show. You've got rules that you personally abide by, but of course, that of the channel. You must never, forget those. Even though you would get something of a surprise, we still need to abide to those and the levels of etiquette that needs to go with that, Sam.
mm, mm, mm. Because the phone is not the main thing. The main thing is us and the listeners. So the phone is just a channel through which we bring a message across. What comes out of that phone and the way we handle it should still be representing us. And I think that's where now I agree with you, Divesh, to say, let's not be fixated into discussing the phone, the instrument called the phone. It is not about that instrument, it's what that instrument help us achieve as people who are hosting the show. And I think you can literally be absorbed into handling that phone to a point where it becomes irrelevant to what you wanted to achieve. And that is actually, I also pick up this description on the internet, where they are describing or defining what phone etiquette is. They're saying that phone etiquette is the way you represent yourself and your business to customers and co-workers through telephone communication. And this includes the way you greet a customer, your body language, tone of voice, word choice, and how you close a call.
That's true.
Yeah. So that self-awareness, Rabula, that you were talking about, it is forever with us, all the time. One can misuse the phone or abuse the phone, and one can use the phone to advance quite an impactful outcome. as long as you are self-aware and you are intentional about it. That this is the means by which I'm going to reach my listeners. And this is the way the people call me in the studio. So when I pick up that call, it's not about that phone that I'm picking up. It's about the voice behind that phone and the person behind that voice. And that's that. I think that's where the self-awareness comes in. And that's where people like Opri Masango, when they talk, you even forget that they are using all these platforms and they are mastering them and they are mixing them. You just enjoy the fluidity with which they are actually bringing the messages across. And I'm sure with such advanced radio stations, they must be having high-tech stuff around themselves. Don't you think so? And they have to master it. It's like these guys who are today when they're broadcasting football, they've got these screens where touch screens where they can draw graphics and all sort of things. I mean, look at the complexity, and yet still it's the same impact that as you had some years ago. So
Pam, now you make me think back when I grew up that we didn't have TV. The
yeah,
radio was a visual, which
yeah,
we could visualize what the host, the
mm,
DJ or the radio announcer was saying. You visualize it, and it forces you to think beyond the call of duty. So hence, radio used to be the most powerful information driver across the spectrum. So now the radio is still there, but you can still use the podcast. You can still use Gomeza as an information driver. So which means the imagination, we should not even leave it behind. It should be part and parcel of how do we handle these things.
yeah,
So always have that self-awareness, that imaginary thinking all the
yeah,
time to say, here I am, I'm delivering the message.
yeah. I
Yes,
should be able to experience the emotional state that you are in as you are conversing, and your voice should still. It doesn't matter what equipment you are using. I still want to hear the feelings and the emotions that are evoked
yes,
by whatever you are communicating to me.
yes.
My cousin was sharing with me about the interview that Tovela FM had with somebody who was a famous broadcaster called Putiana Weabontlan Letswa.
Mm,
And they said to him, Mr. Leswalo, when you were broadcasting the game, and it was the last minute of the game, what do you call it, the additional time,
mm,
uh, and then he will say, I'll say it in the neck, and then you can explain to the version others. He says, Mulirali, even kala mafelelo was then last 15 minutes. And then, Aramalo, Aramalo. Even my fellow was then and then they ask him, why were you saying those things? And then he explained to them, we must remember during our times there was no
mm.
television, and we
Exactly.
used to say that the radio is the eye of the air. So
Yes.
you need to broadcast the game in such a way that the people don't even want to go away from their television. And
No.
then they said we missed that saying of yours. Can you just say it just to remind people? Can you just say Malo? And then he said, no, it won't happen. It is not. It can't happen. That I wasn't just saying Malo. When I was saying Malo, I was in a moment emotionally with what I was saying, and it was my style of saying for people to see and experience what I'm seeing happening in the field.
That's why their
That's
transition
the point
from
we are saying. Yeah.
that's why their transition from radio to TV was the most difficult one.
Yeah. Because on TV you can't tell us what we see.
Yes. You can
You must tell us
draw.
you must tell us what we don't know about this player that we see.
Yeah, you cannot do imaginative. They say playing around with ways. Do you know when in the radio, it's easier for me to say Malo, Malo. Even in the last minute, any sinner will go into will be able to enter the heaven. So
Yes.
it's that figurative language you can't use it on the TV.
No.
But I have a different view, gentlemen, that it's a different medium that we're using. It also then demands different level of creativity. On the radio, online streaming, on a podcast, you got to use voice. You got to you be figurative, descriptive to get that message in a creative way through that medium. But for something like a visual medium, if you look at AI, for example, now it's taking words and then it creates the picture for you. But it's the type of pictures that you can never create yourself if you were an artist, for example. So it's a different medium, a different skill set that's required. Like with the digital online streaming, we are sharing skill sets, but as we would sometime even transition towards a visual media where we're having video, a lot of the skills that we are sharing and wanting to teach our listeners will be still applicable, but we will then add on additional skill sets because we'll be having a different a medium that we're addressing our customers or our audiences with.
So you are saying that it's a build up as situations changes and the medium changes
Yes, indeed,
in
Sam.
terms of competencies.
Definitely, Sam.
Mm.
A lot of the do's and don'ts for the one medium would go across the span to the other areas. And with the podcasting, for example, you might find that some of our aspiring listeners might be creative for podcasting, others might be more creative with regards to a visual medium like video streaming, for example. But the skill sets we're trying to share will be applicable across different types of medium. And as we move into the future, we've got things like artificial intelligence, bots, for example. You've got avatars with interactive. There's lots of new things that's coming. So my point is, as we evolve, we sometimes can even, just like we've dealt with in our previous shows, how radio evolved into where we are at this point in time, having interactive podcasts and being able to reach anyone for the furthest part of the earth with our messaging, Sam.
So that is where now we bring in the IoTs, as you call them in your AI language, the Internet of Things, because it's the integration of all the things in one.
Indeed.
Am I?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, carry on.
Now I'm saying indeed, and even the IoT that you mentioned is already evolved, and it's now called the Internet of Everything, where you can look at your fridge, for example. Of course, these things come with a price tag, but your fridge can actually determine that you're running out of milk, and it can do the ordering of the milk for you, and the milk can get delivered to your house, and then obviously somebody would need to pick it up. But if you have money again, you could probably have an AI robot who will fetch
Mm,
that milk from the gate and take it and put
mm,
it into the fridge for you. So
mm,
the technology is moving at leaps and bounds, and one of the worrying factors for me is that not everybody is keeping up with it. Even from a
mm,
generational level, I feel that um, it's a cost factor. And one important thing that I like about what we do as Cometsa is that we are making our skills, our knowledge, our forecasting that we see with regards to opportunities in the future accessible to anybody and everybody, Sam.
mm. Mm. And I think just to support the point you are raising, and I think we need to really emphasize this because you have just conscientized us about let's not be too fixated. Actually, everything that has happened in the past laid the baseline is a foundation. I mean, let's take, for instance, in the payment industry. I mean, it's not long ago that the tipping was introduced. And a lot of people were very reluctant. Oh, this is dangerous, you know. Today, almost like when you get to the till and somebody wants to use the old methods, you know, can you just tap, please? So I think the adaptability that is there, and I think also the when it comes also the many technologies that are now integral that we thought will actually run away with us. It just depends on how much you spend time with them until you are so comfortable with them that actually you know how to operate them in a way that you feel safe. I mean, for instance, remember last time, Divesh, we were talking about passwords. And then somebody was saying, hey, I always forget my password. And then we talk about password manager. I mean, today is standard. Even Google itself has called its own password manager. And in reality, now you don't have to remember everything as long as the first time you captured it and you use the password manager to remind you on it. And if you forgot it, it has got a way of, can we send you a code to your mobile phone that you can insert and then we know it's you? Or you get a question to say somebody's logging in, please just answer on your email that is you or not. So there's a buildup of security layers that over time people start trusting them, and then we start actually going with the flow. But I think what we have just reminded ourselves is that the real basic knowledge or the real basic behaviors or etiquette don't necessarily get replaced, Divesh. I think that's what you are trying to say, that they just get applied to a different setup.
Yes, we
And if you
evolve
are to
with
teach
them.
people, if you are to teach people, that's the chapter one. Chapter one, you have to go back to the basic for people to understand the evolution and where you are. Am I saying it the way you try to clarify for
100%
us?
Sam. 100% Sam. And indeed, just like how we have arranged our format of the digital online streaming mastery program, we started
Mm.
at that base and we keep building upon it. And we reach a point where we have the foundation of the house. And then we
Yes.
start to come with the details into each one of our modules. So, just
Mm.
like that philosophy, uh, the same is applied to something like etiquette. We build a foundation, and then when we move and evolve, whether it's technology, whether it's the platform, the delivery medium that we're choosing, we take that base ethic and we add on top of that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Great. Yeah. Wow. I didn't see where the hour went to. Yeah. So yeah, beautiful. I think we have the point is made, and I think for me, in the takeaway from this conversation is that we are replacing nothing, but we are just building on it, and our very basic foundational knowledge is what help us actually understand the integration of all these technologies. And the phone now is no longer just an instrument, but it could also be integral to the program, and if it's integral to the program, then the etiquette, the do's and don'ts are different to when it is not integral to the show and it's just something next to us, we should not be distracted by it. And that's really my takeaway. If you can also reflect on that and share with us your takeaway and check out as well, we have 5 minutes. That will be wonderful.
Before we check out, there's something which just clicked my mind now. When you started the program in Zirast of women entrepreneurship, one of the things which I preached the first two sessions was saying, please, businesswomen, make sure that you've got a smartphone. Once you've got a smartphone, you've got electronic computer. You can do anything in the world around it. And that should be your tool of business and communication from now going forward. And make sure that it's got a data, because what was more critical around that was issue of data. So
Yeah.
that brings me back to say, in the past, or when the smartphone were introduced, was more to say it's for young people. But now for elderly people who were in that program, they now have to adapt to the changes of the technology. So the phone which I'm using right now is more like the fully fledged system which can do anything across the world.
Indeed.
So yeah, that's my take of saying, be aware of the tool you've got in front of you, what the tool can do for you to make your life much more easier. And be adaptable to that tool, because it comes with all the changes in front of you and makes your life much more easier, which means you can be efficient with that tool next to you. That tool is a telephone. Thank you, sir.
Beautiful. Indeed. And I think that's a topic on its own. We need to make people realize the power in their hand, inside with that handset in their hand. It's really powerful. Indeed. Thank you so much, Robula.
Check out for me, Sam, would be that your mobile phone or device etiquette is very dependent on your situation. If the device is part of your platform, part of delivering your show or your message in the relation to digital online streaming, there is a specific etiquette that you should follow. If it's not part of the show, again, there's a different etiquette that should be followed. As intricate as the technology has become into one's life, you'll find other situations. For example, when you're on an aeroplane, you still can have your phone on. They say you must put it on flight mode or switch it off. So you have to balance and understand the situation or scenario you're in and apply the relevant ethic to that situation. Thank you, Sam.
Great. Wow. Thank you so much, colleagues. This was very insightful. As always, building up onto many other conducts that we've tackled in the past. One of those is being fully present, attentive, and engaging and conversational. So yeah, so that was Unit 19. I'm not sure whether there is a need for us to expand on this topic tomorrow, but we will discuss among ourselves and we'll let you know. But otherwise, the routine continues. Tomorrow we'll bring other angles if we happen to be in the studio. So that was the Commercial Radio Worldwide, the mind, the journey to destiny. We apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. Our shows are based on the principle called the idea. We inform and entertain, develop and educate, empower and support, associate and network. That's the idea. In the studio, I was with Date Rabula and Divesh, and then, of course, Franz Hamuda. Rabula Mulivani, Divesh Mutilal, Franz Makolovera Mutla. That is the team, and we thank them for the valuable input, insights. We are journeying along, and we are making huge impact in terms of packaging the conducts and the units of our digital online streaming mastery show as part of our the trainer. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. You take care. Goodbye.